Take a close look at this portrait. Does he look familiar? The very first time I saw it, I instantly thought of Severus Snape, played by the brilliant Alan Rickman. The sharp center part, the piercing glare, the stern expression. Snape is easily one of the most complex and memorable characters in the entire Harry Potter universe. But the man on the left isn't Professor Snape. This is a self-portrait by the French painter Nicolas Poussin. And just like Snape's bravery and intellect shaped the climax of Harry Potter, Poussin changed the course of art history. With just one single painting, he rewrote the rules of European art for the next 200 years. That painting is the Death of Germanicus, and here's how it happened. To set the stage, it's the early 17th century, over 100 years since Leonardo painted the Mona Lisa. The European art scene is completely dominated by the Baroque style. If I had to describe Baroque in 2 words, they would be shock and excess. It was the art of high drama and heavy metal energy. Caravaggio was blasting his saints with harsh, theatrical spotlights. Rubens was painting voluptuous, larger-than-life figures. Baroque compositions were swirling vortexes of motion, fabrics flying, hands thrown up in desperate prayer, and faces twisted in extreme, raw emotion. This was the meta in Italy, Flanders, and Spain. Everyone was turning the drama up to 11. But amid all this chaos, there was one man who wasn't buying it. Enter Nicolas Poussin, a reserved, deeply introverted French painter living and working in Rome. Poussin had a fascinating artistic journey. In his 30s, he moved from Normandy to Rome, where he spent most of his life. Initially, in the 1620s, he fell under the spell of Baroque, heavily inspired by masters like Titian. Yet, the sheer louder is better excess of the Baroque style started to rub him the wrong way. Instead, Poussin found his true inspiration in ancient Greek and Roman art. He flat out refused major church commissions because he found them too flashy and commercial. Poussin firmly believed that art's true purpose was to educate, not to agitate. Naturally, he chose his clients accordingly: intellectuals, scholars, and cardinals with massive personal libraries. In 1627, Cardinal Francesco Barberini commissioned Poussin for a painting. For his subject, Poussin chose a gripping story from ancient Roman history, the tragedy of Germanicus. Germanicus was the nephew of Emperor Tiberius. He was a brilliant military commander and a massive fan favorite among the Roman public. Naturally, Tiberius was deeply jealous and paranoid that Germanicus would overthrow him. Shortly after returning from a campaign in Syria, Germanicus suddenly fell ill and died. Rumors immediately spread that the emperor had him poisoned. On his deathbed, Germanicus gathered his closest soldiers and made them swear a sacred oath to avenge his death. Now, this plot is pure Hollywood drama. A typical Baroque artist would have turned this scene into an absolute sob fest. They would have distorted the characters' faces with agony, had robes flying in the wind, and theatrical gestures everywhere. But look at what Poussin does instead. If you compare the Death of Germanicus to any classic Baroque piece, you'll see he keeps a few Baroque tools. Yes, there are weeping women, and yes, the rich, high-contrast shadows look a lot like Caravaggio's lighting. But look at the structure. This painting is the exact moment Classicism was born. Poussin arranges his characters almost as if they are lined up with a ruler. The composition is as mathematically symmetrical as an ancient Roman temple. Germanicus lies perfectly dead center. His wife and comrades are framed on either side like marble statues in architectural niches. Their grief isn't hysterical. It's noble, stoic, and controlled. There are no shredded clothes or over-the-top, melodramatic gestures. The colors are muted, and the backdrop is clean, classical Roman architecture. With his single canvas, Poussin basically wrote the ultimate textbook on how a proper, intellectual painting should look. He proved that art should elevate the viewer, not just give them an adrenaline rush. The painting was an absolute game changer. The strict, calculated style of the Death of Germanicus laid the ironclad foundations for classicism in art, and this standard would rule Europe for 2 centuries. In 1648, a group of French artists led by Charles Le Brun and backed by the powerful Cardinal Mazarin founded the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture in Paris. It was the world's very first state-run art institution. The founders practically begged Poussin to move back to France and run the academy. He said no, but even without him physically there, his ghost ran the school. 4 generations, every single art student entering the academy was taught one thing: paint like Poussin. Later in life, Poussin would abandon the Baroque style completely, doubling down on these rigid, hyper-calculated classical principles. But the Death of Germanicus remains the crucial turning point, the painting that set the gold standard for academic art for the next 200 years. This academic stronghold wouldn't start to crack until the 19th century, chipped away first by romantic rebels like Géricault and Delacroix, and later by realists like Gustave Courbet. But the men who would finally smash Poussin's rulebook to pieces were 2 Frenchmen, Edouard Manet and Claude Monet. 2 artists whose names sound almost identical, and who everyone constantly confuses. And finally, let's talk about those paintings in the background of Poussin's self-portrait. First, there's the canvas with the inscription. It reads, "Portrait of Nicolas Poussin, painter from Les Andelys, aged 56. Rome, the Jubilee year of 1650. Right behind on the left, you can see a woman in a diadem being embraced by a pair of hands. She represents the allegory or muse of painting. Look closely at her diadem, the human eye embedded in it. In classical philosophy, this is the mind's eye, the idea that intellectual vision is far more important than mere physical sight. As for those embracing hands, according to Poussin's earliest biographer, Giovanni Pietro Bellori, they symbolize love for art and friendship. Poussin actually painted this portrait as a gift for his close friend and patron, Paul Frere de Chanelou, making devotion and friendship the emotional core of this piece. The final canvas is blank and obscured by shadow. Its purpose is pure composition. It anchors the space and enforces the geometric structure that Poussin's strictly calculated, mathematical style is famous for.